All right, we are live on the air. Google Drive, I think. I think that for this week, I'm one of the teachers this week, as well as
I'm also teaching this week.
so. Do you guys have any questions about anything we've gone over so far in the course? I guess that's a no. So, I can go ahead and start with teaching if everyone's okay with that.
Sounds good.
So I'm teaching this today. Let me share my screen. If I can.
Does it not allow you to share as the host? Oh,
I don't know what was happening, but I could reset something. Can you guys see my screen now?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn off all these notifications. Okay. So I'm teaching on CSS3. So basically, put this little slide together. So we're going to be talking about animation within CSS3. Obviously, this is a slideshow, but not of what the CSS we're doing. But so looking at the first word, animation, or animation in CSS3, an animation is simply an element or an object that has the ability to morph or to change from one style to another, as well as you can do such things as like location. It enables websites and applications to portray a live and automated feeling of a 3D world. CSS3 is the latest evolution of what was originally known as cascading style sheets, which gives websites a more interactive and well-designed interface. And so, I'm going to show you some code that I've been playing around with. So when I open up on this directory, so I have this code right here. I'll open it up. So this document, HTML document, has, first it specifies what it is. HTML has a head, goes from here to here, and the body's down here. And then we have in here a div. Now this div, we've defined it just basically as a box. So it has a width and a height. The color is red. And then right here we see that we have these WebKit animation named. This is what we're going to call this div's WebKit animation. And so obviously there's different versions of browsers that you can use. So you specify the. Can you guys hear me, or am I breaking up?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear it too.
Yeah, I think we just need to mute our mics. There might be feedback.
Okay. So if you have questions, just let me know. But basically, here you have your WebKit name, and it's called example. This is how long it's going to be. It's 4 seconds. And so that's kind of how you define it. Now in here, though, you'll see I call this animation name example, and I'm actually finding it as 10 seconds. These are some comments that we're going to actually play around with. I've commented out these codes, as you can see with this multi-line comment that I'm using, even though I'm using it in a single line. And basically, these are some of the things that it does. It does a delay before the animation starts to run, amount of time you want the animation to run, or if you want to make it run indefinitely. So basically, once you do that, this code right here, it calls the example animation. So you basically use this WebKit keyframe to call this animation name called example. And then what you're going to do to it right here is we're going to change it from a background red color, which it is previously, and by the end it's going to go to a yellow box instead of a red box. As well, over here you'll see this is another way of, this is standard syntax, and here's other syntax that you can use. In this syntax, which I have defined, since it's the later one, it's actually going to pick up this one. What's going to happen is instead of doing a from and to, from the beginning and to the end, during that duration, which is 10 seconds, what this actually does is it's going to do at 0%, it's going to be red. Once it's at 50%, it's going to be switching from red to yellow. So it'll start gradually at up to 50% turn to yellow, and then it'll just go back down to red since we don't have anything else specified. So I'm going to run this code really quick, and I'll show you what happens. As you can see, the box is changing to yellow, and then it's going to go back to red. So as we saw in here, I open this file called 1-css3.html. You come into here, and we can come down here, and I'm going to actually take some of these off, and so we're going to try a new feature. So this one right here is an animation delay. So what I can do is I can take this off, and I'm going to save this file, and I'm going to run it again. For those of you who don't know, I'm using VI in Linux. It's a visual instrument that basically reads text files, so you don't have to open them through an application like Microsoft Word. So it's a little bit different, but so now we're going to open this up again. So we wait 2 seconds, and then it's going to start changing. So let me come back to this file again. We're going to try a different one. So this does how many times, this animation iteration count, does how many times you want the animation to run. So I'll take off these comments. So wait 2 seconds, and then it starts going up to yellow. And in this we had specified 3. So it should happen 3 times. So we saw it once, just barely. There's 2. And so it should go back down. So that's going to be an iteration of about 30 seconds. Since our animation was defined as 30 seconds, we should see 3 color changes. And it's really useful, if, for example, if you want to have like a warning code or anything on the actual code that you're building. For example, let's say you have a countdown timer and you want it to start flashing red, or you want to have it start flashing a color. You can play around with these parameters, and basically what you can do is change it to 2 seconds and have it iterate after amount of time. You can put a delay on it. So that way, if this application is saying you have 10 seconds to choose an option, you can have it when it gets closer to start flashing or to do something to alert the user. Another one we have here is, as well, as we can just make it run infinitely. So we just take these off. Run it again. And basically it waits 2 seconds, and then it's just going to keep going on and off and on and off. So that's that was like the basics of what I worked on. And then I noticed there were more. And so what I did was I created this file right here, the number 2. So in Linux, I'm basically just doing open, and I'm going to put 2. Asterisk is a wildcard character. So I could technically put 2-css3.html, and it will now open that file. And so first, before I do that, we're going to view that. So this one just does a little bit more functionality. As you can see down here, I have more divs, so I had defined them up here in this area. And then inside of our code, I created them. And then basically, with all these different options, I can come in here, I can move them, I can put them in different places. And so I'll just show you the functionality of that. There's many more parameters and things you can do with it. And then if I do open to, this is kind of the functionality you get. And it goes back and forth. And again, you can have that repeating, you can have it stop, you can have the boxes move down, you can have them move around wherever you want. So that's kind of what I've gone through this past week, learning how to do and kind of understand that code. And so are there any questions that anyone has on any of this?
I didn't
Yes,
have any questions. Oh.
I just have one. Did you find anything like reference where we can see, a list of instructions or commands that we can actually configure in CSS for the animations by any chance?
Yep, this wonderful website right here. I'll post that as well in the chat for this meeting. So it's a really powerful tool because before, in the older versions of CSS and the readings that I read, it didn't have this functionality. So it's really convenient if you want to be able to add things and kind of use all of this different functionality, because obviously there's many more things you can do with it. There's a lot of different codes and different parameters you can put. You can have object spin. That's obviously getting a little bit more complex, but that's kind of the basics of what CSS and what you can do with it. Any other questions? Did I answer your question, Jesus?
Yes, yes.
All right, that's my part of that presentation.
All right, I'll go next since mine is the other part of the CSS.
Sounds
All right.
good.
Share my screen. How to... Okay, sorry guys, I'm just trying to figure out how to share my screen really quick. Oh, there we go. Okay. So with mine, I did the animation and the transition, which essentially they go hand in hand with the transition and transformation, which goes hand in hand with the animation. And so right here, this is creating the different divs. Sorry, but go in here. Actually, I'll just show you the web page first. It'll make more sense. Okay. So there's different transformations, and they work. Transformations and transitions work together to. You can either use them separately or you can use them injunctionally. When you use them injunctionally, that's what they do things very similar to the animation. So at the transformation, if it has no transition, they're different by default. Let's see, like this is the regular box, and then translate is a function where you can move it either left, right, or diagonally, or you can scale it, which makes it grow, or you can skew it along the x, or the Y, or you could just use the skew and do both at the same time. Or there's the rotate function, or you can rotate it over the x-axis, or you can rotate it on the y-axis. And then the transitions, so all these by default they don't move like that. If you don't have a transition in them, that like say like this one flips like that, when you load the page, it'll be flipped like that. These I just put some transitions so you can see the effect. But transitions are what cause them to happen the way they do. When you transition them, very much like the animation. I'm going too quickly through this because it's very similar to the animation. But you can add delays where this one is delayed about 3 seconds, and then it will rotate. And then you can use the ease functions as well. So going with the code with them, the first one to translate, and you use the different WebKits as well. And it just translates, and then you use your X and Y values. And then with your two, if you want them to, and like if you want to include them with your transitions, you have to put them in like a hover. You have to put them in a pseudo selector. Otherwise, they won't do anything. They just do that when the page loads, and so that's why I have them on hover. And the scale. With the scale, you have your X and Y again, but the number you put in is the ratio you want it to become. So this says it's 2 and 2. The X and Y they're going to scale to 2 times the size. So if you want it to grow smaller, you can do it to less than 1. And then with skew X and skew Y, if you just want to do 1, you just do skew X and the degrees you want it to skew. Or as I said before, like you can use a skew function right here, and you can skew it with the X and the Y individually. Now with the rotate, if you just use rotate, it will do it around the screen. The first one just like spins it, but you can also do rotate Z. Is another way you'll see it, because this is under a 2D animation, but rotate Z is the same thing for the 3D animation. You won't see any difference. And then you can rotate around the X-axis or the Y-axis, or the other ones. This is for the transformation. To affect your transformations with the transitions, you have to do the transition and use the WebKit as well. And what you select transform in 3 or 3 seconds, and then you can do the different functions with the transition timing function, and then there's the delay. That's what it was. You can delay it with the delay function as well. So that's the code for that one. I have more CSS code because I want to show you guys an example of something pretty much essentially what you can do with it. And so, like here, this is something I had done with my website. You can, as you see in here, it's scaling it. and moving it out, well, it's changing the width. And then on here, when you hover over that, those pop out. And just to go briefly, just go over the code with that. And to go over the transition part. So this is translating when the film hovers. It's moving it, because when you hover over it, the width is changing. You see, it's scaling. And then it this is the scaling part to make the images bigger. But yeah, that's about it. As I went over this just really quickly, just because it's very similar to the animation. Does anyone have any questions? I know I went through that pretty quickly, so.
So it sounds like basically you have your CSS and then you basically just manipulate the exact same way that we did the animations, correct?
Essentially, yes. This is pretty much the way how you, it essentially does the animations. A lot of the things you can do with animations, you can do it with the transition and transformation, but they have added the animation for ones that essentially to do the one just the basic ones that you want to do, because you can get really specific, like with the transformation. I don't know if you could do this with the animation, but like you want it to rotate 20 degrees and then flip around. You probably could, but they essentially do the same thing as the animation, and they work pretty much almost identically. All the functions that you have are pretty much the same. They're just named a little bit differently. But with the transformations, as I said before, if you don't have any transitions on them, then when you load them up, they are as they are transformed. And so transforming also isn't just for animation; it's for like manipulating how you want it to look. Like if, for example, instead of using margins, or if you want to if you just want something rotated, like for me, at one point I had a sidebar on my website over here, and the words were sideways and stuff. I rotated it 90 degrees so that you could do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you can do other things besides like just hovering, right? Like you can make it.
Yeah,
like,
you can do it on click. It's just on click, or however you want it to do it. You can delay it. You can do it when it loads or delays, or it's just you have to use a pseudo class. You have to tell it when you want it to do it.
Okay.
I just did hover because I don't like clicking, and it's just a lot easier to demonstrate.
And a lot of those too were designed and added so we could call it with JavaScript. So you can add CSS for a little bit with all those animations and transitions and everything you want, and then once it's done, you can remove it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what you can do.
Awesome. Well, does anyone else have any other questions? I don't know if you were able to prepare on local storage or not.
I can do it. It's pretty simple one. So I think I can do.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to present about local storage. So basically, local storage is like web application can store all data locally with browser. So before HTML5, the application data had to be stored in cookies. So basically, cookie has some problem, especially security, and always they need to make a request to call the data from server. But local storage is more like have more bigger amount of data, about 5 MB can saved. So don't need to make every time server request. So in local storage part, there are two types of object there. So first one is the local storage. Window that local storage is store data with no expiration date. So it's basically not expired at all, even though you close the tab or pass the day. But the session storage is store data for only one session. So if you close the tab or pass the day, it's gonna be expired and make a like default and new part. I'm going to show the two examples. So this code is basically same, but different is local storage, and other one is the session storage. So first one is local storage, and I already told you guys that it's gonna be save all data even though past. So when I click like 5 times before, and then I close the tab, and then when I click again, it's gonna be 6 times, not the one or make a new one, just keep track. But for session storage, it's different. So when I click the 5 times, and then when I close the tab, and I open it again, and then try to click again, it's gonna be start new. So basically, it's different between local storage and session storage. Is local storage keep the track the all data, but session storage only keep track the one session. That's the difference. That's it.
So I think one of my questions is, so obviously you have local storage. It's more on the person's computer. So what would you technically call like a database, like storing data on it? Because wouldn't that technically be kind of a local storage? For example, if you had a MySQL database or something else on the actual server where you're running the application, would that not be considered local storage as well, or does it? Or is that non-relative to the user having their own local storage?
I think not related with the users or like MySQL. I think I'm not sure exactly how to explain it, but yeah, I think not related with them.
Okay.
Yeah, my understanding is it's just files. So it's kind of like a database. You can look at it that way, but you're the one who's going to have to manage the database and the tables, which really just means the files you're creating. There is something, if you guys want to look it up, I've used this before, but I don't know if it works in this situation like with JavaScript, but it's called SQLite. So SQLite is like a very minimalistic, like server level database that works off the file system. So like it's one text file, and that's the entire database with SQLite, instead of actually connecting to a database that exists on a server. I don't know if you can speak and talk to SQLite with JavaScript though. I've only done it with PHP or Java, so that might be a cool homework assignment.
Thanks.
I'm gonna look into that because I've never heard of that. Thanks. All right. Any other questions for Cahoon?
I can
No.
go ahead. No.
Okay.
Nothing. Matthew, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me share my screen. So can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about the DOM, or the document object management tree. And so basically, I mean, I hadn't really had that much experience with it before. I know probably a lot of you have if you've done any sort of design or that sort of thing. But basically, it's just a way to kind of visualize the objects in your page in like a hierarchy. So think of it kind of like a tree, where you have like the top, and then beneath that there's different levels, and then beneath that different levels. And so the challenge with the DOM, or navigating the DOM, is that I found, at least the challenges for me, is that figuring out where you are and then figuring out how to get to where you need to go. So there's kind of different ways you can kind of access it. There's like the top, which is the HTML, like the main top level. It seems like mainly what I was using was just getting to it through the body, just going straight to the body. And then from there you can access it through kind of like a family relationship here. You have like the parent nodes, and then beneath that you have children nodes, and then beneath those they have children. And if they're on the same level, they're considered siblings. And then, for example, this div in the script, the body would be the parent of those. So it's a lot of going up and down through parents and children, and then you can also go side to side through siblings. So I'm going to kind of show you my code that I was messing with earlier. And it's all just on one page. There's not really much CSS on this at all. In fact, there's none, so don't worry about that for now. But so I just kind of have some sample elements here at the top, like the body, and then some paragraph, and then like some list items, just to kind of provide some content to go up and down with. And then I have 3 functions that are going to do different things to illustrate things. First one is just going to go through all of the, we have this part right here. It's just going to go from the body, and then all the child nodes. So child nodes is, it kind of has characteristics of an array, in that you can access elements of it, like we have right here, where how you would do an array, like a little bracket and then a number, and then it starts with 0 and goes up to the last element. And this right here is just going to go through all of them, and then print out like I'm using the function, the ability here, the node name, just so if you don't do that, it'll kind of give it out in a weird format, and so this is a little easier to read. That's I'm going to show you that right here. So this is the page, and I have also the developer tools up because it's kind of helpful to think of it if you go if you're using those as like the you know, up and down the tree here, going down, and then there's the child of that, and the other child of the body. So anyway, we'll just see what this one does. It'll go through. So if you go back to the code, the first thing it's showing is just a text node. So each of the elements here, like the paragraph, will have the text inside it is also considered a separate node that is a child of the element that it belongs to. So paragraph has text within it that's a child of the paragraph. So going back here, it's going down, there's the paragraph, and then there's the text inside it. There's the div, and there's text inside that. List items, text inside it. And then script. Script was also part of my stuff here, so it's going down and it's finding this now. And then there's text, and then there's all the buttons. There's going to be several of those because I have 3 different buttons. So you can kind of see it going from the top all the way down to the bottom of the tree there. And the second function I have here is just going to show kind of using kind of the sibling type of and the parent abilities, the ways to navigate around the tree. So it's first just going to tell you where you're starting out from, which is going to be the paragraph. And then it's just going to find a sibling of that paragraph. And we're just kind of chaining the commands here, like starting from the document body, then the child of the body, the paragraph, and then the sibling. And then it's just going to give me the name of whatever it is, wherever I am.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So is the child nodes an already defined, what would you call that in Java? Or is that like an already defined function?
Yeah, you don't have to. I mean, it seems like it is. I didn't have to do anything. I mean, you can just add it on to the definition here, and it's going to know what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to create that yourself. You can also, there are different ways to do it. If I go here, you can see you can also use children. That'll skip the text nodes, but it's a different way to navigate around.
So basically, this is kind of just so within DOM, basically they've created this ability to be able to see how everything is mapped out. Is kind of what this DOM is about.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm thinking of it. Like, yeah, it's a way to just like, and it's hard to think of because sometimes it's not exactly what you think. Like, you think, oh, this will be the child of this element, but it's not. So it takes a little practice to kind of figure out who is the child of who. But I think the developer tools is helpful to me to kind of see like, where is it? How's it progressing? And you can see like highlighting like different elements that are going to be different DOM elements here. Yeah, I kept having to kind of go through here and say like, okay, what's it doing? Like, which one's the one I want here? So yeah, it's just a way to like tell the code which element you want it to go to, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds more like you could use. For me, it looks like something you would use for debugging, kind of in a way.
I mean, I think you could, yeah. Yeah, you could definitely make like little breakpoints or whatever, or tell it to like print out different things depending on where you want it to go.
Mm-hmm.
So just the kind of the second one here, it's just going to print out. So it starts with a P. This is our starting point, and then we go back to the code. This next one should go to the sibling. The next sibling. Again, this is another one that like you don't have to define this. It just knows. what that is. So it'll go to the sibling of that paragraph node, and that's going to be a text node. And then it'll go to the parent of the, this is actually going to the last child. Last child's another one. It'll go to the last child element of the body. So that's another, you can do first child and last child are also defined, so you can, if you just want to go to the end, you can easily do that. So this one will be body. So it's, what it's doing is it's going to the body, going to the last child node of the body, and then going back to the parent. So this really doesn't do anything. Like, you wouldn't really want to use this because you're just going back and forth at this point, but it does illustrate kind of how it goes up and down. You can tell it to go up and down.
Mm-hmm.
The last one is going to be a change. So this is how I was using it before, and I didn't, I guess you realize I was accessing the DOM at all. But if you use JavaScript at all, kind of, you use this quite a bit, where it's like document, and then you're just getting the element by ID. So if you go up here, I have an ID on this element right here, this span here that's just a generic ID of change. So if you know where everything is and you don't think the DOM is going to change at all, like, you can go like, okay, child element, whatever, 1 or 2 or something. But if it changes, then that might change. So it's not exactly the most reliable to just go from the top and go down to the exact location. So if you do this, it'll just get the element by the ID name, and it just knows that's where it's going to start. So X has that value of that. Basically, just go straight to here, to the change part. And then I'm telling it to do, okay, the first child of X, which is going to be this part right here, the actual text node. We're going to change the value of that node to just say 336. So that's this part right here. If I hit change, it'll just change it to 336. So it basically, what I'm telling it to do is just go to that section, find the child of that node, and then just change it. So it's kind of a quick way to, it's not really by itself doing something, it's more just like telling the code where to go to do something. You still have to tell it to do something, but
I'm just trying to see like where, because like to me, I would say maybe this is for when you need to like change user or something. I'm trying to understand where you would change this and how it would work in an actual application.
So if you get, actually Jesus was using it a lot last week, if I'm not mistaken. In his code, he was using the like adding and deleting. Like when he would add users or something, he would add like children nodes basically. That's another thing you can do. You can create and delete. So you can basically you can also like change the DOM, not just change it, but add and delete stuff from the.
Oh, okay, like if you wanted to add another thing to a list or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you could call the child.
Just because I didn't have.
You could call like a child node if the child is a list node, and then basically add another node and then just populate it into that.
Yeah, you could just call the list something, have it give an ID, or you can also get element by tag, but that'll give you everything that has that tag.
Something like, to me, like, this sounds like what it would be useful for, like, if say, like, as you're saying, like adding a list of something, and you're adding list items, but then you want to save them on local storage so that when they close down the app, that they can still get it. That you can use this to add to the list, and then it would then you can use it with local storage stuff to store it.
Yeah, and I didn't do this, and I don't actually know if you can do this, but I assume you can. Is if you, I think you could probably. I think the style elements would also be something you could access through the DOM, and I don't somebody could maybe that knows more could offer an opinion on that. But I think you could also change, like, I don't know, I suppose you could change like style elements that way too.
Yeah, like you. It sounds like it sounds like you could do that. Like also like when you asked when you asked about being able to use other things other than hover to use like a transition. This sounds like you could do that too. That.
So could this like potentially be a way for someone to change their settings on an application? Like their preferences for this style or for this, and so it uses this tree to fix those different elements.
I don't know. Maybe.
Too deep of a question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you can. I say go for it. Look, you. That's I can try that in the sandbox.
Okay. Give it a shot.
Again, I'll say the hardest part for me when I was kind of messing with it was like figuring out where you are in the tree. And this isn't kind of the easiest way to do that, is just to like give it an ID and then just to say, okay, go straight to that. But once you're there, it's like, okay, now where do I go from there? I'm creating a child of this element. Where's that going to put me?
Yeah.
It's like you got to leave like instructions for yourself on where to go or what to do, and I guess that is done in a way on a lot of applications. Like it gives you instructions on the buttons on what to click and where to go, and tells you where you are at the top of the page.
I wish that were true for a lot of code. I wish people would write comments because, yeah, I wish there was a standard for writing comments personally, because there's so much code out there that if you don't write comments in your own code, like literally you come back to it and you're just still lost.
I know. I'm really bad about writing comments, but I'm trying to get better. So yeah, it's pretty. I mean, yeah, I kind of had fun with it after a while, like trying to get it to do different things.
It's interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, one of the ways that I used JavaScript, it was especially for programming. I was doing pen testing for a while, and so we would access all validations that were done on client side, and we're breaking them. So you can manipulate anything that it's in the HTML.
Okay. So can you access like our CSS elements also?
Yes, you can do that with the style. I think it's a method. You can access all the CSS properties of the HTML.
Okay, I guess you would just come through it, not from the body though. Oh, that makes sense.
Right.
So if we go back here, I guess it would come up from this way somewhere, not from the body though.
I can't see your screen.
Oh yeah, well that's all right. Oh. Anybody else have any other questions?
I'm good. I think I got a lot out of tonight that I can go work with. So it sounds like, I believe we decided not to decide yet on a project, correct?
I don't think we've decided.
Okay. So inside of our Google Drive, I don't know if you guys can see it. I'll share my screen. And there's 2 comments. So inside of Google Drive, I put this document in there. I forget what everyone's app was. So if you guys want to update that way we can just see what everyone's app was. And then I think that was just our team members on there. So Is there anything else that anyone can think of that we're missing that we haven't done? I've gone through all of the things that we're supposed to go over. Basically, just sounds we're supposed to be teaching for the next few weeks, but which is interesting because I think we should definitely, maybe not either the next meeting or the meeting after, we should probably decide and start thinking about which project we want to work on. That way we can start gearing our learning more towards that. Maybe have like next week one big meeting where we like map out and figure out what we want the app to look like, and that way we can start figuring out parts and figuring out who can work on what. What are your guys' thoughts?
I think that's good. Yeah, we should start deciding what we're going to be doing so we can think of ways we can apply everything that we are learning towards that app.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think we should decide on a project sooner so that we can, like you said, we're not. I don't think we're supposed to like absolutely be working on it till week 9, but why not start now? Because there's nothing that says you can't.
True.
And it'd give us more time if we hit road bumps to fix those and potentially be done sooner, so that we don't have to stress we don't backload all of our work for the course.
Correct.
And
So
it's kind of integrating the learning and the application at the same time. I feel like that works better for me, anyways. I mean, because it's interesting to like learn all this stuff, but until I actually have to apply it, it doesn't really stick.
that makes sense.
Next question would be, are we dividing the team to work on a specific stuff whenever we are going to be starting with the app, or are we going to be working on pretty much everything? I don't think that should be the approach, but I'm just wanting to ask.
I don't know. This is my personal opinion. If we all felt pretty confident, I would love to somehow just spend a whole entire Saturday and try to bust out as much as we could. Obviously, that would be later in the semester, but I'd rather just spend one day Saturday like doing a huge okay, we're spending all day, we're going to try to, that's just me personally, but depending on maybe that's what we can to talk about in our next meeting. I know because Christopher had to, or let's see, who was it? Christopher, I think. Yeah, Christopher had to go today. So maybe what we could do is this upcoming week, we could possibly meet longer. Obviously, we don't want to meet super late because of Jesus, because it's already 11 o'clock his time. But maybe we can meet either twice or just try to figure out something that will work for all of us.
Yeah,
We can do it earlier.
Yeah, I was gonna say we could meet a little bit earlier and meet till the same amount of time if that works for people. Or like I don't know, I think it's a good idea to figure this out earlier in the semester than later.
Yeah, I agree.
So do we have to meet before Wednesday?
Do we have to what?
Meet before Wednesday.
Like before tomorrow?
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just wondering. So if we plan on meeting at...
Oh, I see. Like during the week, does it have to be before Wednesday?
Yeah, I don't think it does anymore.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So if we were just to meet on Tuesday, I'll just have my other class go to on Thursday. That way we could probably meet on at 8 o'clock. So that way it's not late for Jesus.
Okay.
If that works for everyone.
Wait, which day are you talking about?
So next week on Tuesday?
Okay. I might not be able to be there. They just changed my schedule to make me schedule till 9. That's why I got on so late. I typically depends on how busy they are, how busy we are. Like this, usually I wouldn't get off this late, but we just got slammed today because I work at Papa Murphy's.
Okay.
And we got slammed today, so that's why I was out late. But usually, when I'm scheduled to 9 or 8, I usually get off like an hour early.
Okay. Well, maybe so. How about this next week on Tuesday? We plan on getting on at 8. If you're a little bit late, we'll catch you up on everything. But how about we like do kind of a big, just like, okay, what are we doing with the project? And then we'll leave our teaching next week kind of secondary. Or even if that comes to worse, what we could probably do is just I would just say let's just go over the project next week and what we want to do, and then we'll go from the teaching from there. That way we have a meeting where we discuss what we're actually going to learn.
Okay. Okay.
And from what I've seen, some of the lessons can be really short. They don't have to be very long.
Okay.
You could just do like little 5-minute training on different things.
Yeah, I think because we've done a lot of training on these first few things. So how about next week on Tuesday, let's just talk about our project and just figure out what we kind of want to do. And let's finalize that, and then we can go forward from there.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good to me too.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so we'll plan to see you guys next week at 8 o'clock. So.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
Okay, my wife wants to know if you live in Mesa Falls.
Who?
You, Brandon. Sorry.
No, I live in Utah.
Okay.
Sorry.
You just look like you got a nice apartment.
Well, my wife cleans apartments, and so she said she's like, oh, that looks like Mesa Falls.
Oh yeah. No, it's just a mother-in-law apartment. It's got vaulted ceilings. That's what we like. That's the only thing that we liked about it. It's nice.
So you're in Utah. Kihun, where are you at?
Rexburg.
Okay, you're in Rexburg.
Where are you at, Andrew?
I'm in Rexburg as well.
Okay. I'm coming up to Rexburg this weekend.
Oh, nice.
Fred's getting married.
That happens a lot out here.
You what?
So that happens a lot out here.
Yeah. I stopped the broadcast, so if anyone wants to leave